Full Frontal with Samantha Bee earned its third straight Emmy nomination for Best Variety Talk Series this year. As we're recording this, it's been another scary and bizarre week of news with Jeffrey Epstein's death and an ICE raid in Mississippi. But it's kind of like every news week kind of feels this way now. Is it getting more challenging over time to plan and prioritize for a weekly half-hour show when, of course, you have limited time?
It doesn't get more difficult over time. I would say that it's very fatiguing. Like at the end of a long cycle of shows, by kind of like by the fifth bad news story of the week, it's definitely like it's challenging to get the last show out in a cycle because you just feel like I can't believe more stuff is happening. And now we're actually on vacation. We actually have a dark week starting today, and so the news has just been I'm very grateful to not have to I'm very grateful is what I'm saying. We're all really in need of a vacation. Melinda Taub, the head writer of the show, she's incredible. She just I will not hear from her for 2 straight weeks. She goes into she goes into a hangar and just stays in seclusion.
Yeah, I feel like we all need a bunker or to all be researching property in Canada, maybe.
Right. Yeah. We're actually going to go to Canada. I'm going to turn off all my social media. I'm going to turn off everything, and I'm going to just listen to the call of the loons and let that be my guide. I'll come back with a big story after vacation about how loons are really pretty, and I saw a moose.
As we head into another presidential election cycle, there's so much made about how Trump got so much free advertising and free coverage from the networks just from covering him all the time, and the way they covered things out of balance, the emails and all that. Does it feel like at this point the news media that you've observed has sort of learned any of those lessons or not?
It doesn't feel that way to me at the moment. I'm not sure that, I'm not sure that and I say this very generally because I think there are people doing amazing work and everybody's actually really taxed and falls to the wall all the time because the cycle is just so rapid. I do think that there's a problem in the arena of follow-up questions. You really cannot ask these people yes or no questions. It's very it's a really an exceptional challenge pinning these people down, and I'm not sure that people have had enough. I'm not sure people have had enough time, honestly, to analyze what went wrong and to move the needle pushing forward. I don't think that anybody's up to speed. This is just a tornado. It's just a tornado. I don't really have faith. I think that was a really long-winded way to say mostly nobody learned anything, and we are definitely cruising for a bruising.
It just feels like as however things are going now, it's only gonna get worse as we get closer.
It feels like a lot of the same and much worse.
Well, speaking of which, how is it getting more challenging then to frame things with comedy and to give people that kind of comedic catharsis?
Well, political satire is always it's a very challenging art form, if I may, actually, and we definitely tackle really hard subject matter. So I think it's actually just been it's been very consistently challenging, and just the cycle moves very quickly, and the stories are very dire, and so that's its own issue. But we try to sprinkle in joy where we can. We're coming back after this week's show. We're coming back in September with just we're starting off with something really fun, just hitting the election cycle with a bang, just planting a flag in that, and so I'm excited about that. We'll be more seriously talking about the election, I think, when we come back in September. That'll be more real. The process itself is so long, it's so drawn out, it's so crazy compared to other countries. But this is really where I think it really starts to happen. in the fall. If that is to be believed, that it will get more intense. Yikes. I wasn't here. Maybe I won't come back from the lake in Canada. I don't know.
The lake in Canada sounds nice. And as you mentioned, there have been hopeful segments that the show has managed to incorporate, like a lot of Harkins interviewing young voters and seeing how engaged they are, and that party at the U.S.-Mexico border where people actually get along. Is it comforting more and more to kind of look for those rays of hope in the biggest pile of...
Definitely, we have to. I mean, and I think that's happening all across the country. People are finding their community to belong to. One would hope that your community is not white supremacist, but rather the country is full of good people who are experiencing a similar kind of, anxiety, and the stakes are very high for them. And there's a lot of like-minded people out there who really are coming together, who are getting more engaged, like meeting young women on the beach who have voter registration forms in their beach tote is fairly amazing. I have not seen that in my lifetime of covering this type of stuff. And I've been doing it since, the early 2000s. So it feels uncommonly engaged out there, and first-time voters are going to be a really big, if you can move first-time voters, it'll be a really big deal in this upcoming cycle.
And one of the big differences for voters and for comedians and talk show hosts covering this election is that where 2016 was mostly Bernie and Hillary on the Democratic side, this year there are about 815 Democratic candidates.
Yep.
Does that feel better or worse than the way things went in 2016?
Better or worse? I don't see it in those terms. I mean, it is objectively better to have more women in the race and to normalize that. I truly do believe that. It feels to me right now like we need to start separating the wheat from the chaff, because it takes a really, really, really long time to reach voters and to really engage with them. And so this period where there's tons of people in the race is fun, and there's certainly a lot to talk about. But if big issues aren't coming forward in an interesting way from the more tertiary candidates, it's time to kind of it's time for them to let go. I mean, that's just my personal opinion, because I don't want to dilute the experience, and if people don't have a realistic shot at anything, I feel like for me, it's time.
Well, I mean, the one plus side maybe...
Pardon?
I was going to say the one plus side maybe of having this many people is, for a comedy show, it gives you twice as much material, 10 times as much material. Although, you're also depending on people who have heard of any of these people getting those jokes. There's been comedic opportunity there for sure. But I mean, if we're still having those comedic opportunities in November, it's not going to feel like it's not going to be comedy anymore. I actually got my kids. I showed my kids a picture of John Delaney, and I just showed it to them, and then I was like, draw his face from memory. And they made the funniest pictures. It was great. I don't know. Just like an art project on a rainy day. And you've interviewed Kamala Harris on the show, and other politicians and journalists. And
Yep.
Is there a particular favorite interview you've done over the course of the past season?
Oh, that's so interesting. That would rely on me being able to remember a single thing I've done for the last year. Yeah, I mean, I love interviewing people. So I did love talking to Elizabeth Warren, and I did love talking to Kamala Harris. And I talked to Julian Castro the other day, and that was really fun too. I like talking to the political candidate. I really do. We are certainly inviting them, all of them, to do a really big project with us starting in October. And so, I mean, I can't really give it away. It's another tech project, which we're super excited about. And I think we're launching it at Comic-Con. So watch for that. It's very cool. And we're trying to get them all to be a part of it. So, or whoever's left in the race. So I look forward to talking to them all. I look forward to actually, like, it would be fun, I think, to have our viewers ask them questions, like to facilitate that in some way. I think would be really interesting. I don't know. We'll see how it pans out, but hopefully they'll all talk to me.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Certainly, if not, they could take you up on your offer for them to drop out on your show.
Totally. You're welcome. No one, like, you know, no one announced on my show. The least they could do is drop out on my show.
And speaking of tech projects, last year you had the This Is Not a Game app for, to kind of gamify the 2018 election, the midterms, to get people more involved. And working with Gold Derby, since we have that sort of game element to our predictions for Emmys, that's sort of how we get involved and interested and understand what's going on with, because we look it up because we want to play the game. Right, and so it gets you more informed. What were your thoughts going into creating that project and developing that, and how related is that, if you can say, to what might be coming up technically this year?
We first of all, it was just an exciting side project, because we had done a big piece about gamification, and I found it utterly to be the most fascinating thing. And so we wanted to just apply gamification to the midterm election and just see what happened. And it turns out that our game was also just like, we made it really fun. And we made it, we gave it purpose, and it was hilarious. The jokes were hilarious. So it engaged a lot of people. Like, it surprised us, actually, how many people downloaded the app and played the game and won the game. And so we took all of that knowledge and we've tried to grow it into something else that's perhaps even more exciting. I mean, I can't really say what it is right now. I really can't. And I want to very badly. But we learned from that process, which ultimately was very successful for us. And it was a success for me because I don't really play games, and I don't really do that. I don't spend a lot of time playing games of any kind. And so for me to enjoy the game is saying a lot. And so we've tried to take all of that. Like, we're just such newbies, or we were when we made the original game. Learned a lot, and we're trying to make it kind of bigger, if that's possible.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I think I won like $1.50 from that game.
You know what? It's a dollar that we have before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, I was thrilled just to win it, because I always get knocked out in the middle. I always get something wrong. Yeah, you're a winner. Now, for the show's nomination for the Emmys this year, I believe the show submitted the April 10th episode, which included the segment where you went to interview Yemeni refugees in Djibouti. Okay. That was, of course, a huge kind of undertaking, I'd imagine, to kind of make that trip and prepare for that. And what was the decision making behind that like, and the preparation before you left for that?
The story was very interesting. It really was a story centered around the travel ban and how it was affecting these refugees who basically had all of the requirements to get a visa to come to the States, an American husband or family living in the States. Like, they met every bar for approval to come to the States, but they were held in limbo for so long. They couldn't live in Yemen anymore. And so they were in this holding pattern in the country of Djibouti, which is the east coast of Africa. It's pretty remote. Nobody, these Yemeni people, they don't speak the language of the country. They're not allowed to work. Kids are not allowed to go to school. And the State Department was not forthcoming with any information. So people were left there for 2.5 years, just kind of stuck in an apartment, so miserable, separated from their families, separated from their children. Many of the moms had American-born children living in San Francisco. And so it actually, it was kind of a smallish story, but just the physical, like, what are the physical effects of this travel ban that we're living under? What does it mean? What is it? there's no real logic behind it. It's not really thought out. It's not really codified in any way. It's just a really mysterious process. And so we wanted to shine a light on the mystery of that process. And I think that we did a good job. And in the end, unfortunately, often what happens is if you tell a story that there could be a good outcome, unfortunately, often applying some measure of embarrassment to that story can actually grease the wheels, a squeaky wheel. So the families that we profiled in the piece were actually able to get their visas after our story aired. And we wish that we could have done that for every family stuck in limbo. The travel ban is something that doesn't get a ton of attention right now because there are other things happening that just command, we should be still talking about it. It's a big deal. And we're not, because there are so many other things happening that require your attention. It's so frazzled. The news cycle is so schizophrenic. It's just all over the place. And so we'll be talking about it again in the fall. We just keep trying to bring it back to that because really it's a different kind of family separation. Families torn asunder. People don't know where they stand. It's a very low information process. People really don't. They're just in a real blind spot. So we will definitely circle back to it because it's not going away anytime soon.
And,
Djibouti's too far away. That was a lot of travel.
It's really right, on the far end of Africa from here.
Right across a body of water from Yemen.
And in addition to, that segment this past year, you also did another White House, not the White House Correspondents dinner. It's the second time the show has done that.
Yep.
How did this time compare to the first time? Did it feel like you had sort of the idea of how you wanted to execute it in a way that felt a lot smoother, or?
It was a smooth process. It's very challenging to make a weekly show, and then also host essentially a wedding for 2,000 people. That is an hour's worth of television. It's a pretty heavy lift, but it felt like the right time to do it. We try as much as it's possible to do extra projects or to do stuff that feels really organic to the show. And so we did one, I think, in 2017, and then we didn't do one the following year. It just didn't feel like the right time to do it. And then this year we were just kind of called to do it again. It felt right to check in on the state of journalism and try to boost it, try to raise money for CPJ for sure. And so I think it was very successful. We had a really good time doing it, and that is very key, because if you're going to take on these big things, you have to want to do it, feel like you need to do it, or just have a ton of fun, or all three of those things. It has to check a lot of boxes. But I think it did, because it was really fun. I think it was successful. I really enjoyed it.
And, going into the next year, the next election period, just a small question. What are your hopes for 2020, both for the show and for maybe the news cycle?
Oh my God, that's the biggest question in the world. I hope that we continue doing good work at the show. I feel like it'll be really interesting to track this election. I think it'll be challenging in a totally different way because, all the Democrats will be fighting with each other, and that's really the majority of our audience base. And so we have to think about that. And I just hope that we continue to grow. I hope we continue to be able to find joy where joy exists. It'll be, next summer we'll have conventions, and that is a separate beast entirely, but it's always really rewarding to go to that, and you really feel like you're a part of the political process when you're on the ground there. And so I'm very lucky to have the opportunity to do all these things. They're not always pleasant, but I just hope that we continue to grow and but also somehow enjoy our lives. That's a terrible answer. Sorry.
No, honestly, I think I can totally relate to that answer. It's find joy where you can.
May God help us all.
Find joy where you can, because we're in it for a long haul.
We've got a lot of work to do. Yes.
Thank you so much for your time, Samantha, and congratulations on your Emmy nominations this year. And everyone watching or listening can find more of our Emmy interviews in our Emmy Contenders playlist and make your predictions at Gold Derby, because we've gamified the Emmys just like you have gamified the elections. So thanks again, Samantha.
Thank you. Always good to talk to you. Bye.